Simone Washington stood frozen on her front porch, watching strangers carry her grandmother's china cabinet through the door of what used to be her house. The moving truck in the driveway had someone else's name on the rental agreement. The locksmith was already changing the locks. When she tried to use her key, it didn't work. "Excuse me," she called out to the woman directing the movers. "There's been some mistake. This is my house." The woman, middle-aged with short blonde hair, walked over with a folder in her hands. "Are you Simone Washington?" "Yes, I am. I'm Nancy Coleman. My husband and I just bought this house. We have all the paperwork right here." Nancy pulled out official-looking documents. "The sale went through 3 days ago. Your husband Robert signed everything. Said you were fine with the quick sale because you both needed the money fast for some investment opportunity." Simone's heart pounded as she stared at the papers. Her signature was there, right next to Robert's. But she had been in Chicago for the past 2 weeks on business. She had never seen these papers before in her life. "Where is my husband now?" Simone asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Nancy looked uncomfortable. "He said he was going to Europe for a month. Something about an art exhibition. He seemed really excited about it." "Europe?" Robert had never mentioned any art exhibition to her. In their 8 years of marriage, he had barely sold enough paintings to pay for his art supplies, let alone afford a trip to Europe. Simone pulled out her phone and called Robert's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. Then she tried texting him. "Where are you? Strangers are in our house saying you sold it. Call me now." No response. She called her bank and asked for her account balance. The automated system told her she had $347. 3 days ago, before she left for Chicago, they had over $80,000 in their joint savings account. The money from years of her hard work as a marketing executive. "Ma'am, I'm really sorry about this confusion," Nancy said, "but we have a legal right to be here. We paid for this house fair and square. Maybe you should call your husband again." Simone nodded, her mind racing. She got in her car and drove to the nearest hotel. Once she was in her room, she opened her laptop and started digging. She checked their joint credit card accounts online. Robert had been spending money like crazy over the past 2 weeks. Expensive restaurants in Paris. A luxury hotel in Rome. First-class flights. Designer shopping. But he wasn't alone. The hotel reservations showed 2 guests. The restaurant charges were for 2 people. Someone named Brittany Rogers was tagged in photos on Instagram, showing her at the Eiffel Tower, the Colosseum, expensive restaurants, all with Robert. Simone had never heard of Brittany Rogers. She clicked on Brittany's profile. A young woman, maybe 25, with long red hair and green eyes. Her bio said she was an artist and free spirit. Her photos showed her living a lifestyle that cost serious money. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, luxury hotels. And in several recent photos there was Robert. Simone scrolled through the posts. There was Brittany holding champagne on a yacht with the caption, "My amazing boyfriend surprised me with the trip of a lifetime." There was Robert kissing her in front of the Louvre with the caption, "Love is in the air in Paris." The photos were posted 2 days ago. 2 days ago, while Simone was working 18-hour days in Chicago trying to land the biggest client of her career, her husband was kissing another woman in Paris. With money he got from selling the house Simone had worked for years to buy. She kept scrolling through Brittany's photos. There were pictures going back months. Robert at art galleries with her. Robert at fancy dinners. Robert at a beach house somewhere tropical. How had she missed this? Simone thought back to the past few months. Robert had been distant, but she thought it was because he was stressed about his art not selling. He had been going out more, saying he was taking classes or meeting with other artists. She had been traveling more for work, trying to build her client base. She had trusted him completely. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Angela. "Hey sis, how was Chicago? Are you home yet?" Simone stared at the message. How could she explain this? Her husband had sold their house and run off to Europe with another woman using their life savings. She felt like the biggest fool in the world. She texted back, "Just got back. Need to call you later." Something big happened. Then she did something she hadn't done since she was a little girl. She put her head in her hands and cried. But even as the tears came, another feeling was building inside her. It started as a small flame in her chest and grew hotter with each breath. Anger. Robert thought he could steal her life, sell her house, and run away with some young woman without any consequences. He thought she would just accept it and move on. He was wrong. Simone wiped her tears and opened a new browser window. She had work to do. 8 years ago, Simone had thought Robert was the most romantic man in the world. He was tall, handsome, and passionate about his art. He painted beautiful landscapes and portraits that took her breath away. When he proposed to her in front of one of his paintings at a small gallery showing, she said yes without hesitation. "I want to create beauty with you," he had whispered in her ear. "We'll build an amazing life together." And for the first few years, it felt like they were doing exactly that. Simone worked hard at her marketing job, climbing the ladder at a top agency in Atlanta. Robert painted and took odd jobs to contribute to their household. They bought the house on Maple Street together, a beautiful 3-bedroom home with a big backyard where Robert could set up his easel. But somewhere along the way things started to change. Robert's paintings stopped selling. He became frustrated when galleries rejected his work. He started making comments about Simone's success that felt more bitter than supportive. "Must be nice to have a job that people actually value," he would say when she got a promotion. "Not everyone can sell out to corporate America," he would mutter when she worked late. Simone tried to be understanding. She knew it was hard for him to struggle with his art while she was doing well in her career. She encouraged him to keep painting even when money was tight. She never complained when he spent money on expensive art supplies. "Your talent will pay off," she would tell him. "You just need to keep trying." But Robert seemed to get more resentful instead of grateful. He started going out more without her. Art classes, he said. Meetings with other artists. Gallery openings she wasn't invited to. "You wouldn't understand the art scene," he told her. "It's not really your thing." Simone had felt hurt by that, but she didn't push it. She was traveling more for work anyway, building relationships with clients across the country. She thought they both just needed space to grow in their careers. Now, sitting in the hotel room, Simone realized how stupid she had been. All those nights Robert came home late, smelling like perfume he said was from art openings. All those times he was secretive about his phone or his plans. She had been working to support their dream while he was building a different life with someone else. Simone opened her laptop and started looking through their financial records more carefully. She had always handled most of their money management, but Robert had access to their joint accounts. She trusted him completely. That trust had been a mistake. Over the past 6 months, Robert had been taking money from their savings in small amounts. 200 here, 500 there. Nothing big enough to catch her attention, but it added up to thousands of dollars. He had also opened a credit card she didn't know about. The statements showed charges at expensive restaurants, hotels, jewelry stores. All while Simone was traveling for work. The most painful discovery came when she logged into their mortgage account. Robert had been talking to the bank about selling the house for 3 months. He had gotten pre-approval for the sale and had been showing the house to potential buyers while she was on business trips. The real estate agent's emails were still in their joint email account. Robert had told everyone that his wife was fully supportive of the sale and that she was too busy with work to be involved in the details. Simone felt sick. She had been working so hard to build their future while Robert was literally selling it behind her back. Her phone rang. It was her sister Angela. "Simone, what's going on? Your text sounded serious." Simone took a deep breath. "Robert sold our house while I was in Chicago. He used the money to take his girlfriend to Europe." Silence on the other end of the line. "What did you just say?" "He forged my signature on the sale documents. He emptied our bank accounts. He's been having an affair for months. Maybe longer." "Simone, oh my God. Where are you right now?" "In a hotel. I came home and strangers were moving into my house." Angela's voice got fierce. "That bastard. I never liked him. I always thought he was jealous of your success." "I should have seen the signs," Simone said. "I was so focused on work, I didn't pay attention to what was happening at home." "Don't you dare blame yourself," Angela said. "He's the one who chose to lie and cheat and steal. This is all on him." "I don't know what to do, Angela. I don't even have a place to live. You come stay with me and Jerome right now. Pack whatever you can and come over. We'll figure this out." "I can't impose." "Girl, you're not imposing. You're my sister. Besides, Jerome is a lawyer. He'll know what legal options you have." Simone felt a small spark of hope. She wasn't completely alone in this. "Okay," she said. "I'll be there in an hour." "Good. And Simone? Robert has no idea who he messed with. He thinks he outsmarted you, but he doesn't know how strong you are. We're going to make him regret the day he decided to cross you." After hanging up, Simone looked at herself in the hotel mirror. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was something else there now. Determination. Robert had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had underestimated her. That was going to cost him everything. At Angela and Jerome's house, Simone spread printouts across the kitchen table like a detective working a case. Bank statements, credit card bills, emails, social media screenshots. The evidence of Robert's betrayal covered every inch of the surface. Jerome, Angela's husband and a criminal defense attorney, studied the documents with a serious expression. He had been taking notes for the past hour. "This is bad, Simone," he said finally. "But it's also good for you." "How is any of this good?" Simone asked. "Because Robert made a lot of mistakes. Big ones. Forging your signature on the house sale is identity theft and fraud. Using joint accounts to fund an affair could be considered theft. And if he lied to the bank about you approving the sale, that's bank fraud too." Angela brought over cups of coffee. "So we can get him arrested?" "Possibly. But first we need more evidence." "Simone, you said this Brittany woman has been posting photos with Robert for months." Simone nodded. "I printed out the ones I could find, but I bet there are more." She had spent the morning going deeper into Brittany Rogers' social media presence. The woman posted constantly. Photos of expensive meals, designer clothes, trips to luxury resorts. And starting about 6 months ago, Robert appeared regularly in her posts. But the captions told a different story than the one Robert had been living at home. "Look at this," Simone said, pointing to a screenshot from 4 months ago. She posted this picture of them at some fancy restaurant in Miami. The caption says, "My successful artist boyfriend spoils me so much. So lucky to have found my rich Prince Charming." Jerome raised an eyebrow. "Rich Prince Charming?" "Robert told her he was wealthy," Simone continued. "Look at this one from 3 months ago." She showed them a photo of Robert and Brittany on what looked like a yacht. The caption read, "Weekend on the yacht with my amazing boyfriend. He owns 3 houses and his paintings sell for thousands. Living the dream." Angela laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. 3 houses? His paintings sell for thousands? The man couldn't sell a painting to save his life. "He's been lying to everyone," Simone said. "To me about where he was going and what he was doing. To her about his financial situation. To the bank about my consent for the house sale." Jerome made more notes. "This is actually perfect. It shows a pattern of deception and fraud. Did you find anything about how they met?" Simone pulled out another set of printouts. She posted about taking art classes at the community center. That's where they met. She has photos from the class going back 8 months. 8 months. While Simone was working overtime to land the Henderson account, the biggest client of her career, Robert was flirting with a young woman in art class. "Here's what really makes me mad," Simone said, her voice getting stronger. "Look at what he spent the house money on." She showed them the credit card statements from the past 2 weeks. First-class flights to Paris for 2 people, $4,000. Suite at the Four Seasons in Paris for a week, $8,000. Designer shopping on the Champs-Élysées, $6,000. 5-star restaurants every night, $3,000. "He spent over $30,000 in 2 weeks, Simone said. "Money I worked years to save. Money that was supposed to be for our future." "What was the total from the house sale?" Jerome asked. "After paying off the mortgage and closing costs, about $200,000. He put it all in his personal account that I didn't have access to." Angela shook her head. "I can't believe we're related to someone who worked this hard and saved this much and he just stole it all." "The worst part is how calculated it all was," Simone said. "He waited until I was traveling for work. He scheduled the closing for when I'd be out of town. He changed his phone number so I couldn't reach him. He even had the mail forwarded to a P.O. box so I wouldn't see any of the paperwork." Jerome looked up from his notes. "That level of planning actually works in your favor. It shows this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was premeditated fraud." Simone's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey girl, saw your post about your husband. Mine did something similar last year. Want to talk?" She showed the message to Angela and Jerome. "It's from someone named Rachel," Simone said. "I don't know anyone named Rachel." "What post is she talking about?" Angela asked. Simone checked her social media. She hadn't posted anything about Robert. But when she looked at her tagged photos she found something that made her blood boil. Robert had posted a photo on his Instagram account 2 days ago. It was a picture of him and Brittany having dinner in Rome. But the caption made Simone's hands shake with anger. "Finally free to live my authentic life with the woman I truly love. Sometimes you have to break a few rules to find real happiness. New chapter starting now. Hashtag living me truth, hashtag no regrets, hashtag new love." He had tagged Simone in the post. "He wants people to think I knew about this," she said, her voice deadly calm. He wants everyone to believe I was okay with him leaving me for another woman. Jerome and Angela read the post over her shoulder. Oh hell no, Angela said. He's trying to rewrite history to make himself look like the good guy. Look at the comments, Jerome said. Dozens of people had commented on Robert's post. Some congratulated him on his new love. Others seemed confused, asking where Simone was and if they had gotten divorced. But a few comments caught Simone's attention. Women saying things like "been there," and "my ex did the same thing," and "get a good lawyer." I think that Rachel woman saw this post and thought I knew what was happening, Simone said. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a comment notification from Robert's post. Someone had written, "Simone is such a sweet woman. I hope she's okay with this." Robert had replied, "She's actually relieved. We've been growing apart for years. This is best for everyone." Simone stared at the screen. Even now, even after stealing her house and her money and running away with another woman, Robert was still lying. He was making her look like she was part of his plan. "I'm going to destroy him," she said quietly. Angela and Jerome looked at her. "Good," Angela said. "It's about time." Jerome nodded. "I know some people who can help. Let's make some calls." The law office of Morrison and Associates looked exactly like what Simone had imagined a serious law firm would look like. Dark wood, leather chairs and walls lined with legal books. Patricia Morrison, the attorney Jerome had recommended, was a small woman with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. "Mr. Washington made several critical mistakes," Patricia said, reviewing the documents Simone had brought. "The forged signature alone gives us grounds for both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit." Simone sat forward in her chair. "What kind of criminal charges?" "Identity theft, fraud, potentially grand theft depending on the amount involved. The fact that he used your forged signature to sell real estate makes it a felony in this state." "How long could he go to prison?" "If convicted on all charges he could face 5 to 10 years. But let's focus on getting your money back first." Patricia pulled out a yellow legal pad and started making a list. "Here's what we need to do immediately. First, we file a police report for identity theft and fraud. Second, we get an emergency order to freeze any accounts Robert has access to. Third, we challenge the house sale in court based on the forged documents." "Can we get the house back?" "Possibly. The buyers purchased the property in good faith, but if we can prove the sale was fraudulent, the court might order it reversed. At minimum, Robert will be liable for damages." Simone felt a surge of hope for the first time in days. "What about the money he's spending in Europe?" "That's where we need to move fast. I'm going to contact his credit card companies and banks to alert them about potential fraud. If he's using joint accounts or cards you have access to, we can freeze those immediately." Patricia picked up her phone and called her assistant. "Can you get Detective Rodriguez on the line? I have a client who needs to file fraud charges." While they waited, Patricia explained the next steps. "I'm also going to recommend we hire a private investigator. We need documentation of Robert's relationship with this other woman, proof of how he spent your money, and evidence of his lies to various parties." "Is that expensive?" "It's an investment. The more evidence we have, the stronger our case becomes. And if we win, Robert will be responsible for all legal costs." Detective Rodriguez arrived within an hour. He was a middle-aged Hispanic man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "Ma'am, I've seen cases like this before," he told Simone. "Men who think they can steal from their wives and disappear. They usually get caught because they're not as smart as they think they are." Rodriguez looked through Simone's evidence. "This is actually a pretty solid case. The forged signature is clear fraud. The social media posts show he's been planning this for months. And using joint funds for an affair could be considered theft." "What happens next?" Simone asked. "We file the charges today. I'll issue a warrant for his arrest. When he comes back to the country, he'll be picked up. What if he doesn't come back? Then we'll work with international authorities to extradite him. But most of these guys come back on their own eventually. They run out of money or the girlfriend gets tired of the drama." After Rodriguez left, Patricia introduced Simone to Marcus Chin, the private investigator her firm used regularly. Chin was younger than Simone had expected, probably in his early 30s, with an efficient manner and a laptop bag full of high-tech equipment. "I specialize in infidelity and financial fraud cases," he told her. "What your husband did is pretty typical, actually. Men having midlife crises who think they can start over with someone younger. How do we prove he lied to everyone? We document everything. I'll get complete financial records showing where every dollar went. I'll interview people who know both Robert and the girlfriend. I'll get copies of all his communications if possible. Chen pulled out his laptop. I already started looking into Brittany Rogers. Want to see what I found? He showed Simone a detailed report. Brittany was 26 years old, worked part-time at a coffee shop, and lived in a studio apartment before she met Robert. She had student loans, credit card debt, and no significant assets. She's not some rich woman looking for a sugar daddy, Chen explained. She's a regular person who got swept up in Robert's lies about being wealthy. So she really believed he was rich? Look at this. Chen showed Simone screenshots of text messages between Robert and Brittany that he had somehow obtained. He told her he owned rental properties, that his paintings sold for 5 figures, that he was planning to leave you anyway because you were holding him back from his artistic potential. Simone felt sick reading the messages but also strangely relieved. At least Robert's cruelty wasn't specifically about her. He was willing to lie to anyone to get what he wanted. Here's the interesting part, Chen continued. Brittany has been posting on social media about finding her rich boyfriend, but she also posted some things that suggest she's getting suspicious. He showed Simone a post from 3 days ago, while Robert and Brittany were still in Europe. It was a photo of them at breakfast, but the caption was different from Brittany's usual excited posts. Having amazing experiences but something feels off. Why won't he let me see his credit cards? Why does he get nervous when I ask questions about his houses? Starting to wonder if everything is what it seems. She's figuring out he's been lying, Simone said. Exactly. And when she does, she's going to be very angry. Angry people make good witnesses. Patricia nodded. We might be able to get her to testify about Robert's lies. If she thought she was in a legitimate relationship with a wealthy man, and then finds out he stole money from his wife to fund their relationship, she'll want to distance herself from him. What if she doesn't want to help us? Then we subpoena her, Patricia said simply. But I think once she realizes she's been used, she'll be happy to tell the truth about Robert's lies. Chen closed his laptop. Give me a week. I'll have a complete report on everything Robert did, everyone he lied to, and every dollar he spent. By the time we're done, he won't be able to deny anything. As they left the law office, Simone felt something she hadn't felt in days. Control. Robert thought he had outsmarted her, but he had just made himself vulnerable to people much smarter than he was. Patricia Morrison didn't lose cases. Detective Rodriguez had been tracking down fraudsters for 15 years. Marcus Chen could find evidence that Robert probably didn't even know existed. Her husband had picked the wrong woman to betray. 1 week later, Simone sat in Patricia Morrison's conference room looking at the most comprehensive investigation report she had ever seen. Marcus Chen had outdone himself. Robert Washington is facing serious criminal exposure, Chen said, flipping through pages of evidence. But more importantly for your civil case, he's also broke. What do you mean broke? The $200,000 from your house sale is almost gone. He spent $30,000 in Europe, another $40,000 on gifts and trips for Brittany over the past 6 months, and about $50,000 on his own credit card debts he'd been hiding from you. Simone stared at the numbers. That's only $120,000. Where's the rest? He invested $80,000 in some cryptocurrency scheme. Lost it all 3 days ago. Patricia looked up from her notes. So he's essentially judgment-proof right now. Not quite, Chen said with a small smile. He still has about $60,000 in his personal account, and I found something interesting. He pulled out another document. Robert took out a life insurance policy on himself 6 months ago. $500,000 policy with you as the beneficiary. He's been paying premiums from your joint account. Why would he do that if he was planning to leave me? My guess? He was hedging his bets. If his plan with Brittany didn't work out, he could come back to you. If something happened to him, you'd get a big payout and he'd look like a caring husband. Patricia leaned back in her chair. That's actually good news for us. It shows he knew what he was doing was wrong and he was trying to cover his tracks. There's more, Chen continued. I talked to people at the community center where Robert and Brittany met. Apparently, Robert told everyone there that he was getting divorced, that his wife was a workaholic who didn't understand art, and that the divorce settlement was going to make him wealthy. He told people we were getting divorced 6 months ago? Simone asked. 8 months ago, actually. He's been planning this for a long time. Simone felt the anger building again, but it was different now. Cleaner. More focused. What about Brittany? She asked. Chen's smile got bigger. That's the best part. She figured out Robert was lying about 3 days ago. She confronted him and he admitted he wasn't actually wealthy. She left him in Rome and flew back to Atlanta yesterday. Is she angry? Furious. She found out he's married, that he stole money from you, and that he lied to her about everything. She wants to help us. Patricia made notes. Excellent. Her testimony will be crucial. But here's the thing, Chin said. Brittany is also broke now. Robert convinced her to quit her job and move out of her apartment because he was going to take care of everything. She's staying with friends and looking for work. So Robert destroyed her life too. In a way, yes. Which is why she's willing to testify against him. Patricia pulled out a thick folder. Based on Marcus's investigation, here's our strategy. We file criminal charges for fraud, identity theft, and grand theft. We also file civil suits for damages, emotional distress, and recovery of stolen funds. How much could we recover? Potentially everything. The house sale will be reversed, you'll get the remaining $60,000 in his account, and we'll seek damages for your legal costs, lost credit, emotional distress, and punitive damages. Chen added, plus Robert is going to face serious criminal penalties. Detective Rodriguez says the DA is very interested in prosecuting this case. What about Robert's family? Simone asked. Will they try to help him? I checked, Chin said. His parents are retired and living on Social Security. His brother is a teacher with 3 kids. Even if they wanted to help him, they don't have the resources to pay for his legal defense. Patricia nodded. Robert is going to be on his own. And based on his recent financial decisions, he's not good at planning ahead. When does all this start? Simone asked. It already has. Rodriguez issued the warrant yesterday. Robert's flight back to Atlanta lands tomorrow morning. He'll be arrested at the airport. Simone felt a chill of satisfaction. The beauty of this plan, Patricia continued, is that Robert still doesn't know you've figured everything out. He thinks he's coming home to deal with some confused wife who doesn't understand business transactions. He's in for a surprise, Chin added. Patricia started organizing documents. Simone, I need you to prepare yourself for what comes next. Robert is going to be shocked when he gets arrested. He'll probably try to contact you, maybe even beg for help with bail money. I won't help him. Good. Don't take his calls, don't visit him in jail, don't let him manipulate you with apologies or promises to change. He made his choices and now he has to face the consequences. What if he tries to make a deal with the prosecutor? Let him try. We have enough evidence to convict him even if he cooperates. And any deal he makes will still require him to pay restitution. Chin closed his files. There's one more thing. Brittany wants to meet with you. Why? She says she wants to apologize and make sure you know she didn't know Robert was married at first. She also has some information about other things Robert said and did that might be useful. Simone considered this. Part of her wanted nothing to do with the woman who had been sleeping with her husband. But another part was curious. What kind of information? She says Robert talked about other women he'd been involved with during your marriage. Apparently, you weren't his first affair. The room went quiet. How many others? Simone asked. She's not sure. But she got the impression there have been several over the years. Simone felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. It was bad enough that Robert had stolen her money and house. But learning that their entire marriage had been a lie was almost too much to process. Patricia reached over and touched her arm. Simone, I know this is overwhelming. But this information actually helps our case. It shows a pattern of deception and manipulation that goes beyond just the financial fraud. Take the meeting with Brittany, Chin advised. She might have information that could be useful. And honestly, she's probably feeling as betrayed as you are right now. Simone took a deep breath. Okay. Set it up. One more thing, Patricia said. Tomorrow when Robert gets arrested, the local news might pick up the story. Financial fraud cases involving real estate sometimes get media attention. Are you prepared for that? Simone thought about it. A week ago, the idea of her personal business being on the news would have horrified her. But now, let them report it, she said. Let everyone know what kind of man Robert Washington really is. Patricia smiled. I like your attitude. Robert thought he could humiliate you by selling your house and flaunting his affair online. Now he's going to find out what real humiliation feels like. As Simone left the law office, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Power. Robert had underestimated her. He thought she was just a workaholic who wouldn't fight back. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Simone was having coffee with her sister Angela when her phone rang. It was Detective Rodriguez. Mrs. Washington, I wanted to let you know that we arrested your husband an hour ago at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. He's being processed now. How did it go? Simone asked. He seemed genuinely shocked. Kept saying there must be some mistake, that he had permission to sell the house. He asked to call his wife to clear things up. Angela raised her eyebrows and Simone put the phone on speaker. What did you tell him? That he could call his lawyer. He's being held on $50,000 bail. After hanging up, Angela grinned. I wish I could have seen his face when they arrested him. Patricia warned me he might try to call, Simone said. She said he'll probably be confused at first, then angry, then desperate. Her phone rang again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize. Don't answer it, Angela said. Let him figure this out on his own. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. Same number. He's persistent, Angela said. A text message appeared. Simone, there's been a huge mistake. I'm in jail. Please call me back. I can explain everything. Then another. I know you're angry about the house, but we can work this out. Please don't let them keep me here. Then, why aren't you answering? Something is wrong. Call the jail and tell them you approved the sale. Simone showed the messages to Angela, who laughed. He really thought you wouldn't find out about his girlfriend? Or he thought I'd be too embarrassed to do anything about it? Simone's phone rang again. This time it was Patricia Morrison. Simone, I have good news. The judge granted our emergency motion. All of Robert's bank accounts are now frozen, and we have a temporary restraining order preventing him from selling or transferring any other assets. What does that mean exactly? It means he can't access the $60,000 he has left. It also means he can't pay for a private attorney unless he uses money from before the marriage, which he doesn't have. So he'll have a public defender? Most likely. And public defenders, while competent, don't have the resources to mount the kind of defense this case would require. Simone felt a small smile forming. What's next? The DA is filing formal charges tomorrow. Grand theft, identity theft, fraud, and forgery. If convicted on all counts, he's looking at significant prison time. How significant? 5 to 10 years, depending on his criminal history and how cooperative he is. After Patricia hung up, Simone and Angela went to lunch at their favorite restaurant. For the first time in over a week, Simone actually felt hungry. I'm proud of you, Angela said over salads. A week ago you were crying in a hotel room. Now you've got Robert arrested and his assets frozen. I'm not done yet. What do you mean? Simone pulled out her phone and showed Angela the latest social media posts from Robert's friends and family. Word was getting around about the arrest. Look at this, she said, showing Angela a post from Robert's brother. Please keep Robert in your prayers. He's going through a difficult time and needs our support. And this one from his art teacher, shocked to hear about Robert's legal troubles. He always seemed like such an honest person. Angela read over the posts. They have no idea what he really did. Exactly. They think he's some kind of victim. But that's about to change. Simone had been thinking about Patricia's warning that the case might get media attention. At first that had worried her. But now she realized it could actually be an advantage. I want people to know the truth about what Robert did, she said. I want his friends and family to know he's not some innocent artist having a hard time. He's a thief who stole from his wife to fund an affair. Are you going to talk to reporters? If they ask, yes. I'm not going to hide like I did something wrong. That evening, Simone met Brittany Rogers at a coffee shop downtown. She had expected to feel anger or jealousy when she saw the other woman, but instead she felt something like pity. Brittany was pretty, but she looked tired and stressed. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of the designer clothes from her social media photos. Thank you for meeting me, Brittany said nervously. I know this is weird for you. It is weird, Simone agreed. But I want to hear what you have to say. Brittany took a deep breath. First, I want you to know that Robert told me you were getting divorced. He said you both wanted to end the marriage but were waiting for some business deal to go through first. When did he tell you this? The first time we went out, back in February. He said you were living separate lives and the divorce would be final by summer. Simone made mental notes. February was when Robert had started taking money from their savings account. Did you ever question why you never saw divorce papers or met me or heard me mentioned? Brittany looked embarrassed. He said you were bitter about the divorce and didn't want to meet me. He said you were trying to take half his money in the settlement, which is why he had to be careful about his finances. What about the house? He told me he owned it outright and that selling it was part of the divorce agreement. He said you wanted your half of the money so you could move to Chicago permanently. It was impressive really how thoroughly Robert had lied to everyone. When did you realize he wasn't telling the truth? 3 days ago in Rome. I was looking for aspirin in his suitcase and found some papers. banking information that didn't match what he'd told me about his finances. Brittany pulled out her phone. I confronted him and he admitted he'd been lying about some things. But he said it was because he loved me and didn't want to lose me. Some things. That's when I pushed harder. I demanded to know the truth about his marriage, his money, everything. That's when he finally admitted he was still married and that he'd taken money from joint accounts. How did you react? I was furious. I felt like such an idiot. Here I was posting on social media about my amazing rich boyfriend, and it turns out he was stealing money from his wife. Simone could see why Marcus Chen thought Brittany would make a good witness. She seemed genuinely upset about being lied to. Is there anything else you can tell me about what Robert said or did? Brittany hesitated. There are some things that might be hard for you to hear. Tell me. He talked about other women he'd been with during your marriage. He made it sound like cheating was normal for him. Simone's stomach tightened, but she kept her voice steady. How many others? I don't know for sure. But he mentioned a woman named Jennifer from a few years ago, and someone called Lisa that he said didn't work out. He also talked about women he met when he traveled for art shows. Art shows? Yeah, he said he went to art shows in other cities sometimes. But now I'm wondering if those were really just trips to see other women. Simone remembered Robert's occasional weekend trips to art shows in other cities. She had been proud of him for networking and trying to sell his paintings. Is there anything else? Brittany nodded. He's planning to fight the charges. He told me before I left Rome that he was going to claim you knew about everything and that this is all some kind of misunderstanding. Did he say how he was going to prove that? He said he had emails and text messages that would show you were okay with him selling the house. Simone frowned. She had never sent any emails or texts approving the house sale. Brittany, this is important. Do you think Robert might forge emails or text messages? After everything I've learned about him? Yes, I think he might try anything. Simone made a mental note to call Patricia about this possibility. One more question, she said. Are you willing to testify about what Robert told you? Yes, Brittany said without hesitation. I feel terrible about my part in this, even though I didn't know the truth. If testifying helps you get justice, I'll do it. As they left the coffee shop, Brittany stopped her. Simone, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I'm really sorry. I never would have gotten involved with him if I'd known he was lying about being separated. I believe you, Simone said. Robert is very good at lying. He really is. But you know what? I think he finally picked the wrong person to lie to. Simone smiled. You're right about that. The news story ran on the local Atlanta news station 3 days later. Simone watched it from Angela's living room, feeling strangely detached as the reporter described the case. A local man has been charged with multiple felonies including fraud and identity theft after allegedly selling his wife's house without her knowledge to fund a European vacation with his mistress. The story included Robert's mugshot, which showed him looking confused and angry. It also showed a photo of the house on Maple Street and mentioned that Simone was a successful marketing executive who had been traveling for work when the alleged crimes occurred. Prosecutors say Robert Washington forged his wife's signature on real estate documents and used the proceeds to fund an expensive lifestyle with a woman 20 years younger. If convicted, he faces up to 10 years in prison. Angela muted the TV. How do you feel seeing that? Relieved, Simone said. Now everyone knows the truth. Her phone had been ringing all morning. Reporters wanting interviews, friends who had seen the news, even some clients checking to make sure she was okay. But the most interesting call had come from Marcus Chen. Simone, you need to hear this, he had said. I've been monitoring Robert's communications from jail, and he's been busy. What do you mean? He's been calling everyone he can think of to raise bail money. His parents, his brother, old friends, even some of his art students. Are people helping him? That's the interesting part. At first, some people seemed sympathetic. But word is getting around about what he actually did, and people are backing away. Chen had played her a recording of a conversation between Robert and his brother. Tom, I need you to help me with bail money, Robert was saying. This is all a misunderstanding. Simone knew I was selling the house. Robert, I saw the news. They're saying you forged her signature. The media doesn't have all the facts. Simone and I had an agreement. Then why is she pressing charges? Why didn't she post your bail? There was a long pause. Look, Tom, marriages are complicated. Simone is angry right now, but she'll come around. I just need to get out of jail so I can talk to her. I don't have $50,000, Robert. Even if I did, this doesn't sound like something I want to get involved in. You're my brother. And you're accused of stealing from your wife. I have a family to think about. The conversation had ended with Robert hanging up angrily. He's called 12 people, Chin told Simone. No one is willing to help him. Everyone who knows you thinks he's guilty. Now, watching the news coverage, Simone understood why. The story made Robert look like exactly what he was, a selfish man who had betrayed his wife's trust in the most cruel way possible. Patricia Morrison called during the news broadcast. Have you been watching? She asked. Yes. How do you think it went? Very well for us. The reporter presented the facts without sensationalizing them, and Robert comes across as unsympathetic. Public opinion matters even in criminal cases. What's the next step? Robert's arraignment is tomorrow. He'll be formally charged and we'll see if he can make bail. What if he does make bail? I don't think that's likely. He'd need someone to co-sign, and from what I understand, no one is willing to do that. Patricia was right. The next day's arraignment was almost anticlimactic. Robert, wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, stood before the judge and pled not guilty to all charges. His court-appointed attorney asked for reasonable bail, but the prosecutor argued that Robert was a flight risk who had already demonstrated a willingness to leave the country to avoid consequences. The judge set bail at $75,000, which Robert couldn't pay. Simone wasn't at the arraignment, but she read about it in the newspaper that evening. The article mentioned that Robert would remain in jail until trial, which was scheduled for 3 months later. 3 months. Simone realized that would give her time to rebuild her life completely. The house sale had been officially reversed after the judge ruled that the forged signature made the transaction fraudulent. The buyers who had purchased the house in good faith were refunded their money, and Simone got her house back. But she didn't want to live there anymore. The house held too many memories of her marriage and she was ready for a fresh start. Instead, she decided to sell the house herself and use the money to buy a condo downtown, closer to her office. She had always wanted to live in the city, but Robert had preferred the suburbs. The financial recovery was happening faster than she had expected. Robert's remaining $60,000 had been seized as evidence, and her attorney felt confident they could recover the full amount as restitution. The bank had also agreed to restore the money Robert had stolen from their joint accounts once the criminal case was resolved. But beyond the money, Simone was discovering other benefits to her situation. At work, her colleagues were incredibly supportive. When the story came out, Simone had worried about how it might affect her professional reputation. Instead, she found that people respected her for handling the situation with strength and dignity. You could have just quietly divorced him, her boss had said. The fact that you filed criminal charges shows real character. The Henderson account, the big client she had been working on when Robert betrayed her, had also come through. They were so impressed with her professionalism during a difficult personal situation that they had signed an even bigger contract than originally discussed. Simone's career was thriving in ways it never had before. She was also learning things about herself that surprised her. For years, she had defined herself as part of a couple. She was Robert's wife, or they instead of she. Now, making decisions entirely on her own, she was discovering that she actually enjoyed being single. The condo she was buying had a terrace with a view of the city skyline. She planned to set up a home office there and maybe even try some hobbies she had given up during her marriage. Robert had always made fun of her interest in photography, calling it amateur hour. Now she was thinking about taking a photography class. Marcus Chin called with an update on Robert's situation. He's not adjusting well to jail, Chin reported. He's been complaining to anyone who will listen that he's innocent and that his wife is trying to ruin him out of spite. Is anyone believing him? Not really. The evidence is too strong and his story keeps changing. First he said you knew about the house sale, then he said it was a misunderstanding, now he's claiming you're mentally unstable and making false accusations. Simone laughed. Mentally unstable? His new strategy seems to be painting you as an obsessive workaholic who drove him to have an affair. He's telling people you were never home, that you cared more about your job than your marriage. Even if that were true, which it's not, it wouldn't justify stealing from me. Exactly. And the prosecutor sees right through it. Robert's defense strategy seems to be making you look bad instead of proving his innocence. How's that working for him? Terribly. Every time he talks, he makes himself look worse. That evening, Simone had dinner with Angela and Jerome to celebrate the progress of the case. I have to admit, Jerome said over dessert, when you first told us what happened, I was worried about how you'd handle it. You were so devastated. I was devastated, Simone agreed. But I was also angry. And anger turned out to be more useful than sadness. Angela raised her glass. Here's to my sister, who turned the worst betrayal of her life into the best revenge I've ever seen. As they clinked glasses, Simone realized she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride in herself. Robert had tried to destroy her life, but instead he had freed her from a marriage that was holding her back. He had tried to steal her future, but instead he had given her the motivation to build an even better one. In 3 months, when the trial was over and Robert was in prison, Simone would be living in her dream condo, working on the biggest accounts of her career, and exploring new possibilities she had never considered before. Robert's betrayal had been meant to devastate her. Instead, it had made her stronger than she had ever been. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Simone was reviewing marketing proposals in her new downtown condo. She had been living there for 6 weeks, and every morning she woke up grateful for the decision to leave the old house behind. Simone, this is Patricia. Robert's attorney contacted me this morning. Robert wants to meet with you. Absolutely not. Wait, hear me out. He's offering to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a meeting. His attorney says he wants to apologize and discuss restitution. Simone set down her coffee cup. What's the catch? I don't think there is one. Robert's case is falling apart. His attorney knows they can't win at trial. The evidence is overwhelming and Robert's credibility is shot. Then why does he want to meet? My guess? He's hoping he can manipulate you into asking for a lighter sentence. Simone thought about it. Part of her wanted to face Robert and tell him exactly what she thought of him. But another part of her wanted nothing to do with him ever again. What do you recommend? Honestly, I think it could be therapeutic for you. You'd be meeting him on your terms, with me present, in a controlled environment. And if he does plead guilty, it saves us the time and expense of a trial. He'll try to make me feel sorry for him. Probably. But Simone, you're not the same person you were 3 months ago. You're stronger now. I don't think Robert can manipulate you anymore. Patricia was right. The woman who had been crying in a hotel room 12 weeks ago might have been vulnerable to Robert's lies and apologies. But Simone had spent 3 months rebuilding her life and her confidence. She wasn't afraid of Robert anymore. Okay, she said. Set it up. The meeting was scheduled for the following Friday at the county jail. Simone arrived wearing her best business suit and carrying a leather portfolio. She wanted to look successful and professional. She wanted Robert to see exactly what he had lost. The meeting room was small and sterile, with a metal table and plastic chairs. Robert was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit that looked too big for him. He had lost weight in jail, and his usually well-groomed hair was messy and unkempt. When he saw Simone, his face lit up with relief. Simone. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for months. She looked at him calmly and didn't respond. Robert sat down across from her, with his attorney on one side and Patricia on the other. You look good, Robert said, studying her face. Different but good. I am different, Simone said. I'm not your wife anymore. Robert's smile faltered. About that. I know you filed for divorce, but we can work this out. I made mistakes, but... Robert, Patricia interrupted. We're here to discuss your plea agreement. Nothing else. Robert's attorney, a tired-looking man named Phillips, pulled out some papers. My client is prepared to plead guilty to fraud and identity theft in exchange for a recommendation of minimum sentencing. What about grand theft and forgery? Patricia asked. We'd like those charges dropped. Not happening. Robert forged his wife's signature and stole over $200,000. Those charges stand. Robert leaned forward. Simone, please. I know I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt you. You sold my house, Simone said quietly. You spent our life savings on another woman. You lied to everyone we know. Those weren't mistakes, Robert. Those were choices. I was confused. I was having some kind of midlife crisis. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly enough to plan everything for months. You were thinking clearly enough to forge my signature and lie to the bank. Robert's face got red. You were never home. You cared more about your job than our marriage. There it was. The blame shifting that Marcus Chen had warned her about. Even if that were true, Simone said, it wouldn't give you the right to steal from me. I didn't steal anything. That was our house, our money. No, Robert. That was my house. I made the down payment from my savings. I paid the mortgage every month. You contributed maybe 10% to our household expenses. Robert looked shocked. That's not true. Simone pulled out a folder from her portfolio. Actually, it is true. I had an accountant analyze our finances for the past 5 years. Want to see the breakdown? She slid the papers across the table. Robert looked at them and his face went pale. You paid $340,000 toward our living expenses over 5 years, Simone continued. I paid $1,200,000. You were basically living off my income while pretending to be an equal partner. I was trying to build my art career. You sold exactly 4 paintings in 8 years. For a total of $1,200. The room went quiet. Robert stared at the financial analysis, and for the first time since Simone had known him, he seemed to have no response. Phillips cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the plea agreement. Fine, Patricia said. Robert pleads guilty to all charges. In exchange, we recommend a sentence of 3 years instead of the maximum 10. 3 years. Robert looked panicked. I can't do 3 years in prison. You should have thought about that before you committed 4 felonies, Simone said. Robert turned to her with desperation in his eyes. Simone, please. I know I hurt you, but I'm begging you. Ask them to give me probation. Community service. Anything but prison. Why would I do that? Because you loved me once. Because we had 8 years together. Because I'm sorry. Simone studied his face. 3 months ago, this moment would have broken her heart. Seeing Robert desperate and scared would have made her want to help him, even after what he had done. But now, looking at him, she felt nothing but pity. Robert, do you know what I've been doing for the past 3 months while you've been in jail? He shook his head. I bought a beautiful condo downtown. I got promoted to senior partner at my firm. I landed the biggest client in our company's history. I started taking photography classes. I went on vacation to California by myself and had the best time I've had in years. Robert looked confused. I'm happier now than I was at any point in our marriage, Simone continued. It turns out you weren't the love of my life. You were the thing holding me back from my life. That's not true. It is true. For 8 years I made myself smaller so you could feel bigger. I worked extra hours to support your dreams while giving up my own. I apologize for my success so you wouldn't feel bad about your failures. Simone stood up. I'm not going to ask for leniency in your sentencing, Robert. You made adult choices and you can face adult consequences. Simone, please don't do this. She looked at him one last time. Goodbye, Robert. I hope you use your time in prison to figure out how to be a better person. As she walked toward the door, Robert called after her. This isn't over. I'll appeal. I'll prove you knew about everything. Simone paused at the door and turned back. Actually, it is over. The divorce will be final next week. After that, you'll just be someone I used to know. She left the jail feeling lighter than she had in months. Patricia caught up with her in the parking lot. How do you feel? Free, Simone said. Finally, completely free. He'll take the plea deal. He has no choice now. Good. I'm ready for this to be finished. As she drove home through downtown Atlanta, Simone realized she wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't sad. She wasn't afraid. She was just ready to move on with the life she was building for herself. A life that was going to be better than anything she could have imagined when she was married to Robert. The courtroom was packed the day Robert pled guilty. Word had gotten around about the case, and several local reporters were present to cover what had become known as the house theft scandal. Simone sat in the front row with Patricia, watching as Robert stood before Judge Martinez to formally enter his plea. Mr. Washington, do you understand that by pleading guilty to these charges, you are admitting that you committed fraud, identity theft, grand theft, and forgery? Robert's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. And do you understand that these are felony charges that will result in a criminal record and potential imprisonment? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Martinez reviewed the plea agreement. The court accepts your guilty plea. Sentencing is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. As Robert was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at Simone one last time. She met his gaze calmly, feeling nothing but relief that this chapter of her life was finally closing. Outside the courthouse, reporters approached Simone for a statement. Mrs. Washington, how do you feel about your husband's guilty plea? I'm grateful that justice is being served, Simone said simply. I hope this case sends a message that financial fraud and identity theft have serious consequences, even when the victim is a family member. Do you have any regrets about pressing charges? None at all. What my ex-husband did was wrong and he needs to be held accountable. Will you be present at sentencing? Yes. I plan to give a victim impact statement. That evening, Simone worked on her victim impact statement in her condo, looking out at the city lights while she wrote. She wanted to make sure the judge understood not just the financial damage Robert had caused, but the emotional toll of his betrayal. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was full again for sentencing. Robert's parents had come, along with his brother and a few friends. They looked tired and sad but not angry. Simone got the impression they had finally accepted that Robert was guilty. Judge Martinez called the proceedings to order. Before I impose sentence, I'd like to hear from the victim. Mrs. Washington, please come forward. Simone walked to the podium with her statement. She had practiced it several times, but now, facing Robert one last time, she felt the full weight of everything he had done. Your Honor, when I married Robert Washington 8 years ago, I thought I was marrying my best friend and partner. I trusted him completely with our finances, our home and our future. That trust was completely misplaced. Robert didn't just steal money from me. He stole my security, my peace of mind, and my faith in my own judgment. He made me question whether anything about our marriage had been real. For months I blamed myself. I wondered if I had been a bad wife, if I had somehow driven him to lie and cheat and steal. It took me time to realize that nothing I did or didn't do justified his actions. Robert chose to forge my signature. He chose to lie to our bank. He chose to spend our life savings on another woman. He chose to humiliate me by flaunting his affair on social media while I was working to support our household. These were not mistakes or oversights. They were deliberate, calculated decisions made over many months. I've spent the past 4 months rebuilding my life from scratch. I'm stronger now than I was before, but that doesn't minimize the damage Robert caused or excuse his actions. Your Honor, I ask that you sentence Robert to the maximum penalty allowed by law. He showed no mercy when he stole from me, and he deserves no mercy now. Simone returned to her seat, feeling like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Robert's attorney made a brief plea for leniency, emphasizing Robert's lack of prior criminal history and his deep remorse for his actions. Robert himself gave a short statement apologizing to Simone and asking for forgiveness. Judge Martinez was not impressed. Mr. Washington, what you did to your wife was cruel and calculated. You violated the most basic trust between spouses, and you did it for your own selfish gratification. The court sentences you to 4 years in state prison on the combined charges, followed by 2 years of probation. You are also ordered to pay full restitution of $237,000 to the victim, plus court costs and attorney fees. 4 years. It was more than the recommended sentence, and Simone could see Robert's shock as the bailiff led him away. After the hearing, Patricia walked Simone to her car. How do you feel? She asked. Like I can finally put this behind me, Simone said. 4 years seems like appropriate justice. The restitution order is also excellent. Between the criminal restitution and our civil settlement, you should recover everything you lost and then some. What happens to Robert now? He'll be transferred to state prison within the next few weeks. With good behavior, he could be out in 3 years. As Simone drove home, she reflected on how much her life had changed in 6 months. The woman who had been crying in a hotel room last spring was gone, replaced by someone stronger and more confident. Her phone rang. It was Marcus Chin. Saw the news about the sentencing, he said. 4 years is solid. I'm happy with it. What's happening with Brittany? She's doing well actually. Got a new job at a marketing firm, found a nice apartment. She's been dating someone new, a guy who actually has his own money. Simone laughed. Good for her. She wanted me to tell you that she's grateful you didn't blame her for what happened. She said knowing you forgave her helped her forgive herself. She was a victim too in a way. That's a generous way to look at it. That evening, Simone had dinner with Angela and Jerome to celebrate the end of the legal proceedings. So what's next for you? Angela asked over wine. I'm thinking about taking a photography workshop in Italy this summer, Simone said. Something I always wanted to do but never made time for. What about dating? Jerome asked. Ready to meet someone new? Simone considered the question. Maybe eventually. But right now I'm really enjoying being single. I'm learning who I am when I'm not trying to make someone else feel better about themselves. Angela raised her glass. To my sister, who turned the worst betrayal of her life into the best thing that ever happened to her. As they toasted, Simone realized Angela was right. Robert's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also freed her from a marriage that was limiting her potential. She was 34 years old, financially secure, professionally successful, and emotionally stronger than she had ever been. For the first time in years, she was excited about the future instead of just going through the motions of her life. Robert had tried to destroy her. Instead, he had given her the gift of starting over. 6 months after Robert's sentencing, Simone stood on her condo balcony watching the sunrise over downtown Atlanta. She had a cup of coffee in one hand and her camera in the other, capturing the golden light hitting the buildings below. Photography had become more than just a hobby. She was getting good at it, good enough that a local gallery had agreed to display some of her urban landscape photos in a group show next month. Not bad for someone who's only been taking classes for 8 months, she murmured to herself, reviewing the shots on her camera's display. Her phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Coffee after your morning shoot? I have news. Simone texted back. Meet me at grounds at 9. Can't wait to hear your news. She finished her photography session and walked to the coffee shop, enjoying the energy of the city waking up around her. Living downtown had been one of the best decisions she'd made during her fresh start. Everything felt more vibrant and alive than it had in the suburbs. Angela was already at their usual table, practically bouncing with excitement. Okay, what's the news? Simone asked, sliding into her chair. Jerome got offered a partnership at his firm. Angela grinned. We're celebrating this weekend and you have to come. Angela, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of him. And proud of myself for putting up with him studying for the bar exam all those nights, Angela laughed. But seriously, we want you to bring someone to the party. Someone? A date, Simone. It's time. Simone had been hearing variations of this conversation from Angela for months. She wasn't opposed to dating, but she also wasn't actively looking. Her life was full and satisfying without a romantic partner. I'm happy being single right now, she said. I know you are. But being happy single doesn't mean you can't also be happy with the right person. If the right person comes along, great. But I'm not going to force it. Angela studied her sister's face. You're really okay, aren't you? I mean really, truly okay. Simone thought about the question. A year ago she would have said she was okay while feeling hollow inside. Now she felt genuinely content with her life. I'm better than okay, she said. I'm thriving. It was true. Work was going incredibly well. She had been promoted to senior partner and was heading up the agency's biggest accounts. The Henderson deal had led to 3 more major clients, and her reputation in the industry was stronger than it had ever been. But beyond work, she was exploring parts of herself she had neglected during her marriage. The photography classes had led to weekend trips around Georgia, capturing small towns and natural landscapes. She had joined a hiking group and discovered she loved being outdoors. She had even started taking cooking classes, something Robert had always dismissed as not worth the time. Have you heard anything about Robert recently? Angela asked. Not really. Last I heard he was adjusting poorly to prison life. Simone had received the full restitution payment 3 months ago, along with additional damages from the civil settlement. The money had allowed her to pay off her condo completely and start an investment portfolio. She was more financially secure than she had ever been. Do you ever think about him? Sometimes. But not with anger anymore. More like pity, I guess. He threw away 8 years of marriage and his freedom for a fantasy that lasted 3 months. Any regrets about how it all played out? Simone considered this. I regret that I didn't see who he really was sooner. But I don't regret anything I did after I found out. He needed to face consequences for what he did. They finished their coffee and walked back toward Simone's building. As they reached the lobby, the doorman called out. Ms. Washington, this package came for you this morning. It was a thick envelope with no return address. Inside was a letter written in Robert's familiar handwriting. What is it? Angela asked. Simone scanned the letter quickly. It's from Robert. He's apologizing again and asking if I'll visit him in prison. Are you going to? No. I said goodbye to him at the jail last year. I meant it. She dropped the letter in the trash can in the lobby. That's it? Angela asked. That's it. Robert is part of my past, not my future. That afternoon, Simone was editing photos in her home office when her doorbell rang. Through the intercom, she heard a man's voice. Ms. Washington? This is Jonathan Brooks from Brooks & Associates. We spoke about the legal photography project. Simone had forgotten about the appointment. Jonathan Brooks was a lawyer who had contacted her about doing photography for a legal website. It was a potential new source of income from her photography hobby. She buzzed him up and opened the door to find a tall man with kind eyes and an easy smile. He was probably around her age, dressed professionally but not stuffily. I hope I'm not too early, he said. I finished my previous appointment sooner than expected. Not at all. Come in. As they discussed the photography project, Simone found herself enjoying the conversation. Jonathan was intelligent and funny, and he seemed genuinely interested in her work. These urban landscapes are really impressive, he said, looking through her portfolio. How long have you been doing photography? About 9 months. I started taking classes after my divorce. Good timing for a new hobby. I started rock climbing after my divorce 3 years ago. There was something comfortable about talking to someone who understood major life transitions. The meeting lasted longer than planned, and by the end, Jonathan had hired her for several photography projects. I hope this isn't too forward, he said as he gathered his papers, but would you like to have dinner sometime? Not business related. Just dinner. Simone found herself smiling. I'd like that. They made plans for the following weekend, and after Jonathan left, Simone realized she was looking forward to it. Not desperately, not with the anxiety she remembered from her early dating years, but with genuine anticipation. Angela called that evening. So, any chance you'll have a date for Jerome's party? Actually, maybe, Simone said and told her about Jonathan. A lawyer who appreciates your photography? He sounds promising. We'll see. But Angela, whether it works out with him or not, I'm good. I'm really genuinely good. I know you are. That's why I think you're ready to let someone into your good life. After hanging up, Simone walked out onto her balcony with a glass of wine. The city sparkled below her, full of possibility and life. A year ago, she had been living a lie without knowing it, married to a man who saw her success as a threat and her trust as something to exploit. Now she was living a life that was entirely her own. A life built on her own terms, funded by her own work, filled with activities and people she had chosen. If Jonathan turned out to be someone special, that would be wonderful. If not, she would continue building the life she loved. Either way, she was going to be fine. Better than fine. She was going to be happy. As the sun set over Atlanta, Simone raised her wine glass in a silent toast. To new beginnings. To second chances. To the strength she never knew she had. And to Robert, wherever he was, for giving her the greatest gift he could have given her. The chance to discover who she really was when she wasn't trying to be someone else's wife. The woman she had become was someone she was proud to be. And that was worth more than any house, any marriage, or any life she had left behind. This was her story now. And it was just beginning.